UI question.
Yeah, buffs and debuffs are already shown on allies and enemies on your targets.
Actually, even like this is one of the really cool things that just sort of happened and worked. The nameplates over people's head. That is a little teeny snippet of a web page. Like off screen, there is just a huge, a great big web page with lots of little divs in it, and when we just put the text in that and pull it out into the game scene, and I'm looking forward to people putting more things in that and seeing what kind of just interactive stuff happens.
How will we be able to implement a UI mod? Exactly how you described. You're already spot on with that one. There are instructions on the GitHub for you, but you're heading in the exact right direction.
Yeah, the exact way that third-party mods will hook in and override that is still to be determined. You can certainly replace the UI with your own right now, and we'll make some kind of interface to just swap out piecemeal things, be long term.
Chromium-based browser updates. We have to integrate updates ourselves, but we do this regularly.
Yeah. With a couple minor tweaks, we're using the Chromium embedded framework. It's essentially Adobe took Chromium and wrapped it up into something that was a little more embeddable.
Modding will not be essential to play competitively. It's for extra things that you personally like, but out of the box, no, you'll be fine with our built-in UI. You won't need it to be competitive at all.
And a big part of the whole reason we want to open source ours is so that if someone does come up with something that's really cool and makes the game experience better, that makes it possible to fold that back in if you're following good open source practices and obeying the license.
Yeah, we totally want to be able to integrate people's changes when they make sense to be integrated. I have a good feeling people are going to come up with a lot of cool stuff. Currently, we don't have key bindings right now set up. We have default keys, but I don't see why that wouldn't be possible if we have an API for it.
Actually, hold on, what was the question?
Can you change your key bindings on the website? I mean, if we experiment a database.
Yeah, I wouldn't rule that out. Which configs belong to your client and which belong to your character account is, I'm not sure what the ideal is there. It goes back and forth. I've seen some games do some dumb things there. There's a certain game that actually has your current current equipment list stored on your client, and that annoys the hell out of me. I'm not going to name the name though.
Filtering mature content.
Filtering mature content from UI mods. I have no idea.
Yeah.
That's we're certainly not going to force a UI mod on you, and we're not going to be actively limiting a particular UI mod. I mean, it's right now you have access to the net. There's nothing that's going to stop you from just making a UI mod that does nothing but display a really nasty JPEG, and that's your own problem if you do it. The places where we're going to filter things aggressively is if someone has a UI that's essentially an exploit. Where we're going to attack that is on like what information are we exposing, what access do we give to the UI, and that's where we're going to be fighting. But if someone does something that doesn't break the game, you're on your own. You installed that in your own client.
Yeah, an in-game checklist to turn mods on or off is going to happen, I'm sure. We don't have anything built for it right now, but it's a solid idea. API is accessible from outside of the game client. Now, when we say API, we really mean two things. There's one API that the game client is exposing in JavaScript, and then there's also a web API, so HTTP requests. So these are two separate kinds of APIs, but yes, you can access chat from outside of the game.
Okay. How will this translate to multiple monitors? That's a good question. Basically, each UI subwindow is, for all practical purposes, its own browser. It is its own web page that all get integrated into what we're rendering, and any of those can move anywhere within the larger UI.
Mod to mod communication seems like we could do that through a JavaScript API observer pattern.
Yeah, there's no, because each window is in its own browser process, like the usual sandboxing rules do apply there.
Yeah.
But that's not something where we can actively prevent anyone to do it, because if things have access to a WebSocket, they could both be talking out to the same server or something like that.
You got a really nice beard, Andrew.
So do you. Well done, sir.
Genetics. You attempted to break or exploit the UI. Yeah, sure. I tried to write a little bot for targeting stuff, and it didn't work well, basically. I mean, sure, you can do pixel color detection, and you can send key presses, the usual, but nothing is really bottable at this point. There's not enough UI there to try and bot it. I haven't gotten anything deeper than that yet.
The big question, given that the chat protocol will be XMPP, will I have access to the XMPP stream? Yeah, the people in internal test have had access to that for months. I mean, you really can't just connect to the in-game chat with Trillion or Pigeon or anything that supports Jabber. Now, our server isn't going to blindly relay any horribly malformed evil XML that you send to it. So there might be some limitations on communication there, but
I think it's questions on specific info query requests. I think it'll be possible, but once again, it depends on the XML you're sending. Rate limiting. We already currently have rate limiting right now. I don't know what the exact value
the IT
is.
guys the IT guys are familiar with the day when we got everyone to jump in and just attack the server with key macros to send thousands and thousands of messages a minute. There is a rate limit, though.
Multiple UI windows open affecting performance. I mean, you would have to have an insane amount of UI windows open, I feel like, for it to negatively impact you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say
screen widgets.
I'm not going to say you can't write like the world's worst JavaScript ever, and and
you
just
could make a bad experience
slow.
if you want to, but you'll have to work for it.
How many abilities will the UI give you access to? There's a limited set of actions. Again, you cannot. The UI cannot make you move. It cannot make you jump.
Having the code open source doesn't make it any more able to be botted. It's not a security flaw in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, the thing that I've learned over the years is that you guys are going to figure this out. Because I was the bad kid who figured this out, and Bryce was the bad kid who figured this out. This is like all this like trying to hide it doesn't stop anything, and putting things out in the open means that there's a community of people where problems are much more likely to come to light than not. Create mobile apps for the UI and put we're not going to there's nothing that's really going to stop you from making something that standalone just talks to our server. We'll definitely rate limit you if you do something completely obnoxious.
Some of the questions are UI specific, like special character pages or mini maps, and none of that stuff has been decided yet.
Actually, I'm pretty sure there's specifically a general community desire going back to the Kickstarter to not have a mini map. A lot of people felt like that broke a certain sense of just intense immersion of what is over that next hill. So.
Yeah, I think a lot of the idea is we don't want you to play the UI, we want you to play the game. So I think you'll see that in a lot of places. Damage numbers over the head of your opponent. Andrew kind of answered this earlier. We're not exactly sure if you're going to be getting real-time data like that. You'll get accurate data eventually, but I don't know if we'll be having real-time damage numbers like that.
If we choose to expose that from the point of view of just putting it in there to appear, then anyone else is going to have that too. So it's not going to be like, oh, there's damage numbers over heads, but we're not exposing that. Like if we're exposing that to players, we're exposing that to the UI layer. Will I be able to be logged into the game on my computer and say manage my inventory on a second browser or even smartphone? Yeah,
Yeah.
that is the point.
Yep. Basically, the exact same UI that we use in game, we're going to be able to expose on the web. I mean, it's all just HTML, CSS, JavaScript.
We'll keep the information be accessible via the UI. Very real time state of the game stuff may be somewhat hidden. Again, it comes back to we don't want to. That radar is the classic example of just things we don't want to make possible. Most information is going to be either aggregated in some way or time delayed in some way, or both. We may give you, all right, you get the kind of aggregate stats now, and with a 2-hour delay, you'll get the really fine grained stuff.
Auction house question, pretty sure no.
Yeah, we've announced no auction house. Again, that comes back to the community. It's not a technical decision. It is a community decision of what we want to encourage players to interact with one another. And I think a lot of the convenience features in games have sort of automated away the actual interaction with other players. That's the whole point of an MMO.
UI design philosophy, absolutely minimal. Stressing immersion, absolutely.
What's the most exciting aspect of doing the UI this way to me? I'll let you go first.
It's a technology I've been using for like over a decade and a half now, and I never had any idea I'd be using this to make something in a video game, and that's fucking badass.
Yeah, for me, the most exciting thing is that I don't know what's going to happen. Like, there is going to be a really cool mod or mashup or something that, I cannot imagine right now, and that no one in here knows right now. It's the uncertainty that's, what are you guys going to do? That's the single most exciting thing.
Right now, health bar is not time delayed. Currently, that's a good point. Like, obviously, you have an accurate health bar that has to be available in real time, which it currently is. Why don't other games use this system? Probably because they don't have Chromium embedded in their game.
During the alpha beta process, is it more likely we can see real-time combat information? I would say yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Just for debugging.
And probably, even like after the game is launched on the test servers as well.
Oh, there's already people in the office that are going to be writing their own mods that aren't part of the CSE builds. I know James has been ranting and raving for a while about modding his UI himself, so absolutely.
Yeah, and we'll make him put that on GitHub.
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
Will you be able to debug the UI? Have we tried that?
Just debugging. You don't have the console available to you. I'm not sure if you can have that console available to you. We haven't looked into it yet. I think it's possible, but you definitely don't currently have the Chromium or the Chrome console, so I'm not sure it would be that useful. Shortcomings of this UI system? Disadvantage to it? I can't. Nothing comes to mind. There's got to be some disadvantages to it, though. There always are trade-offs. Maybe it's not. I don't know. It might not be as potentially high performance as Lua, but honestly, I can't say. It's not like I've done any performance testing. I really can't say if there's any shortcomings of it at this point. I guess we'll find out. In the game world, be able to see who killed who. I mean, currently, right now, kills are only in the chat log, basically, as chat spam. There's a kills API, though, so I mean, you could potentially do something with that.
I think everyone's getting rate limited right now.
Jupster, the announcement about the UI is just that it's open.